Man, I have a buddy of mine in college. He had this two-step process for how to solve anything. Step one, you just do it. Step two, you're done. So that's what we're gonna do. Check this out. Man, we just mocked these up. We got our rocker bar and it actually fits. And we don't know if we can weld it, but let's not get, not worry about details. Check that out. She's tucked in there. Man, that tube looks simple. That's a pretty complex 3D tube. It took longer than I'm going to tell you how long that took. But, hold on a second. Alright, check this out. So we got our cage. We just did the rocker bar. Man, this thing was tough, but it looks badass. I'm super happy with how it turned out. It's exactly what I was hoping for. We made the best of a tough situation. So there's just no room, but according to the rules, most interpretations of the rules would say you have to have this bar in this application, mainly because I slightly modified the floor. So anyway, obviously we got to hook to the hoop back here. We got to get to the front of the hoop, and there's a seat right in the way, and there's seat brackets right below that. And we got to have room to get a seat belt through here. And we got to not run into the seat, which you can see it gets a little tight there, but we can adjust that clearance a little. And then of course the rocker bar goes by the rocker, so we need to avoid the rocker. And then we actually have to be able to weld this on both ends. And then down here, or let's say to the front, my diagonal tube, I want it to hit as low as possible there, because that makes getting in and out of the cart easier. So, sorry, I got crap in the way, I can't film very well. But you can see this tube angles down as much as I could to try to make getting in and out of the car easier. So to do that, I need this tube to come in really low. So right now I've got a spacer in there to leave a bit of a gap, and it's probably going to end up being something like this, roughly speaking. Welding it might be tough. It's going to be almost impossible, but we're just going to figure it out. Man, I have a buddy of mine in college. He had this two-step process for how to solve anything. Step one, you just do it. Step two, you're done. So that's what we're going to do. That's going to be our procedure. But man, like I said, I don't know, I can't get over it. It turned out exactly like I hoped. That diagonal has the kick out a little bit. Let's see if I can capture that. There we go. Yeah. So the diagonal's got that kick out a little bit to give you some shoulder room. That rocker bar is just totally out of the way. It's exactly what we were going for. So pretty happy. We got to think about what we're going to do next, because I wasn't sure if this was even going to work out, but it actually did. We did get this tube on the first try, but holy crap, that was difficult. Let me show you guys a little bit. I'll try to keep this brief. So this single tube, this is a 31-degree bend that hits a tube that is not straight. So that tube is angled, not in that direction, but yeah, it's just so hard to show. There you go. There you can see it. This tube is vertical. That tube obviously isn't vertical. So that tube's kicked in at an angle, and you have a bend hitting a tube at an angle. So you end up with multiple angles to try to figure that out. That tube, after it makes its turn, oh yeah, last thing, just kidding. We said this is a 31-degree bend, which it is, but it's not straight either. It actually rotates, which I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. Yeah, it's really hard to show the camera to pick that. But when this tube gets here, this bend rolls upwards slightly. And the reason we did that, by moving this up, it makes it easier to weld. That was the thing we discovered by accident when we were mocking stuff up. So this bend has a rotation of something, 18 degrees or something like that. A 31-degree bend with an 18-degree rotation with another tube coming in at an angle. Then, after that, it travels this direction for a certain distance, has another bend, and then down here there's another bend and it hits that tube. But these two, I needed to move this direction a little bit. So if we look at it this way, yeah, that shows up nicely. And it also needed to move down some, which if I get on the other side of the car, that'll be obvious. Yeah, you can definitely tell it's angling down. So I had to do the trig, which is actually pretty easy, to do the three-dimensional, hey, this needs to, what two angles will result in it going down and to the right the correct amount. Then it just went straight and intersects that tube, which sounds easy. I said something straight, but it isn't. Look at this. That's at an angle. It's approximately 7 degrees. So again, another angle to deal with. Luckily, it's just one angle. So all that had to go into that tube, and like I said, there just isn't a lot of room for mistakes or errors. And the fitment needs to be good enough to weld, and we got it, but it wasn't easy. Also, we weren't able to do all of the cuts. So this back cut, I actually did it in my tubing cutter, and I didn't video any of it because the setup was so ridiculous that I really didn't think I was going to be able to cut it in the machine. And finally, I figured out a way to do it. So I kind of learned something there. This one, I said no thanks, and I just took a tube that was already cut and laid this piece of paper over it and basically made a template. And this should show up. See how there's a C and a 7 degrees? Basically, I marked the center of the bend and then rotated this 7 degrees to represent the 7-degree angle of that tube, and I just traced that out on the tube. And the length, luckily I calculated all the lengths and they were right, but I left a bunch on here and then stuck it in the car and got it close and checked it to make sure, like a sanity check, before I did the final cut. And it worked out. The one thing we had going for us, the one little thing that helped, because this tube is at a slight angle, like it's higher here and it's lower there, so the tube's sitting like this. If you try to do this, it effectively gets longer. So if there was a, say you put it in here like this and you cut it a little short, if you let one end fall a little bit, it gets longer, which will jam it back tight. So I kind of knew, I was like, hey, when I'm doing this, I'd rather have this end up as high as possible, more or less, and then try to cut it right. But if you screw up, I could always drop this back end a little bit. So it ended up being about as high as I wanted it, which is perfect because the higher it is, the more room I have for welding. But was it necessary? I could have sacrificed, say, a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch to get that, to save that tube. I'm sorry this doesn't show up very good because I have all these pieces in here, but that tube is sitting in there nice and pretty. It's just hard to get my camera in there, but yeah, there it is. She's looking great. So super happy, man. All right, I'm gonna quit rambling, but damn it, that's good. That should be the hardest fabrication work for the cage is now officially behind us, except for welding, but I don't think welding is going to be as hard as that. Let's hope not, at least. So at this point, to summarize, we still have to do the 2 tubes over there, but we are not going to do a mirror image of these. Screw that. This is way too much work, and there's no seat going over there, which means I can just do straight tubes without bends. Now granted, like we said, they hit tubes that have angles and whatever, but way simpler than this, and it'll be slightly lighter and simpler. So we got to do 2 of those over there. Basically the same concept, a rocker bar and a diagonal. We got to reproduce that over there, and then the last 2, I can't believe it, the last 2 tubes, they go here and they diagonal, hit that plate on either side. Those again should be simple, because actually these really should be, because these are going to hit a straight tube without a bend, and they hit a straight plate. That should actually be really simple, and I bought enough tubes to, I can screw those up several times. And we got the length thing going for us there. So if you cut the tube slightly too long or too short, you can just swing it in a little bit to save it. So that shouldn't be so bad. So man, we should legitimately be, from the tube bending standpoint, we are now past the hump. We have done the hard work. We still got, what, 4 tubes to make? They shouldn't be too bad. Not compared to some of the crazy shit we've already done. And then we just got a bunch of welding to do. So, good stuff. So, anyway, I don't know if y'all can tell how excited I am, but this is good stuff. I'm very happy. Anyway, until next time, y'all take it easy.